What happens when one of daytime television's most respected hosts comes face to face with a guest who refuses to play by the rules? In just 31 seconds, a single comment would shatter the civility of an interview and lead to one of the most shocking exits in talk show history. The stage was set like any other day at the studio. Tamron Hall sat in her signature chair, poised and professional, ready to navigate what she thought would be a standard celebrity interview. The audience filled the seats, buzzing with anticipation. Cameras positioned perfectly to catch every angle. Lighting adjusted to create that warm, inviting glow that daytime television is known for. Everything seemed normal. Everything seemed routine. But this interview would be anything but routine. Meghan walked onto the stage with an air of confidence that immediately caught everyone's attention. The audience applauded, some more enthusiastically than others. She wore an expensive outfit, the kind that probably cost more than most people in that audience made in a month. Her smile was practiced, almost rehearsed, as she waved to the crowd and made her way to the guest chair. Tamron stood to greet her, extending her hand with genuine warmth. "Welcome to the show," Tamron said, her voice carrying that professional friendliness she had perfected over years in the industry. Meghan took her hand, but the handshake was brief, almost dismissive. She settled into the chair, crossing her legs and smoothing out her outfit with a deliberate slowness that seemed designed to make everyone wait. The first few minutes started innocently enough. Tamron asked about recent projects, about life, about the usual topics that fill the opening segment of any talk show interview. Meghan answered, but there was an edge to her responses, a sharpness that Tamron, with all her experience, immediately picked up on. "So, let's talk about your recent initiatives," Tamron said, leaning forward slightly, trying to establish that connection that makes for good television. "You've been involved in several charitable causes. Tell us what's been inspiring you lately." Meghan shifted in her seat, and for a moment, her carefully constructed facade seemed to slip. "Well, Tamron, I think the real question is why we're still asking women to justify their choices in 2025. Don't you think that's a bit outdated?" The audience went quiet. It was an odd response to a simple question about charity work. Tamron maintained her composure, her smile never wavering, but you could see something change in her eyes. A flash of recognition that this interview might not go the way she planned. "I'm not asking you to justify anything," Tamron replied calmly. "I'm simply asking you to share with our audience what causes are close to your heart. Our viewers are genuinely interested in the work you're doing." "Are they, though?" Meghan shot back. "Or are they interested in something else entirely? Because let's be honest about what these interviews are really about." Tamron took a breath, the kind you take when you're counting to 3 in your head before responding. "These interviews are about giving you a platform to speak about things that matter to you. That's why you're here." "A platform," Meghan repeated, letting out a short laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "That's an interesting way to put it. You do realize that I'm the one giving you content, right? Your ratings probably jumped the moment my team confirmed this appearance." The tension in the studio became thick enough to cut. Audience members exchanged glances. Camera operators shifted uncomfortably behind their equipment. The producers in the control room likely felt their stomachs drop. But Tamron, ever the professional, didn't take the bait. "We're grateful to have all our guests," she said evenly. "Every single person who sits in that chair brings something valuable to our show. Now, would you like to tell us about your charitable work, or would you prefer to discuss something else?" "What I'd prefer," Meghan said, her voice taking on a harder edge, "is to be treated with the respect I deserve. Do you know how many interview requests I turned down? Do you have any idea how many shows would kill to have me sit in this chair right now?" The audience gasped. Some shifted in their seats. This was getting uncomfortable, and everyone could feel it. Tamron's expression remained composed, but her voice carried a firmness that hadn't been there before. "I absolutely respect you, which is why I invited you here today. But respect goes both ways. I've asked you a simple question about your charity work 3 times now, and instead of answering, you've chosen to question my intentions and my professionalism." "Oh, here we go," Meghan said, rolling her eyes in a gesture so dramatic it bordered on theatrical. "The host plays the victim card. How original. I'm not playing victim to anything." Tamron responded, her voice still controlled but with an underlying strength. "I'm trying to have a conversation. That's what we do here. We talk, we share, we connect with our audience. But that requires both of us to participate in good faith." Meghan leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "Good faith? You want to talk about good faith? Let me tell you something about good faith, Tamron. Good faith would be recognizing who I am and what I've been through. Good faith would be approaching this interview with some sensitivity instead of these basic, boring questions that any first-year journalism student could come up with. The studio went completely silent. Even the audience members who had been fidgeting were now frozen, watching this confrontation unfold in real time. Tamron sat up straighter, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of someone who had finally had enough. I've been in this industry for over 20 years. I've interviewed presidents, celebrities, activists, and everyday people with extraordinary stories. I prepare for every single interview. I research every guest. I craft questions designed to let people share their truth in their own words. What I don't do is let anyone, regardless of who they are, disrespect me or this show. Disrespect? Meghan's voice rose. You think I'm disrespecting you? That's rich coming from someone who makes a living exploiting people's stories for ratings. Exploiting? Tamron repeated, and for the first time, genuine emotion crept into her voice. Not anger, but hurt, mixed with disbelief. I give people a voice. I provide a platform for important conversations. If you think that's exploitation, then I genuinely don't understand why you agreed to come here today. Meghan stood up abruptly, the sudden movement startling everyone in the studio. You want to know why I came? Because my publicist thought it would be good for my image. But clearly, this was a mistake. I should have known better than to waste my time with daytime television hosts who think they're journalists. The insult hung in the air like smoke. Tamron remained seated, but her eyes never left Meghan's face. Sit down, she said quietly, but with unmistakable authority. Excuse me? Meghan looked genuinely shocked that someone had just given her a direct instruction. I said sit down, Tamron repeated, her voice still quiet but firm. You came on my show. You're in my house. And we're going to finish this conversation like adults, or you're going to leave. Your choice. Meghan laughed, but it was the kind of laugh that had no humor in it. Your house? This is a television studio. Tamron, get over yourself. This is my show, Tamron corrected, standing up now to meet Meghan at eye level. And yes, while you're here, these are my rules. You don't get to walk onto this stage, insult me, insult my work, insult my questions, and then act like you're the one who's been wronged. I can do whatever I want, Meghan shot back, her voice rising to match the escalating tension. I'm not some nobody you can boss around. Do you know who I am? Yes, Tamron said simply. You're a guest on my show who seems to have forgotten what that word means. Meghan's face flushed red. How dare you speak to me that way? I've sat down with Oprah. I've been interviewed by the biggest names in media. I don't need to stand here and take this from you. Then don't, Tamron said, her voice steady as a rock. The door is right there. You're welcome to use it any time. The challenge was clear. The line had been drawn. Everyone in that studio held their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Meghan pointed her finger at Tamron, her hand shaking with anger. You're going to regret this. Do you understand me? When this airs, when people see how you treated me, you're going to regret every word. Tamron didn't flinch. The only thing I regret is that our audience came here today expecting a meaningful conversation and instead had to witness this behavior. They deserve better. I deserve better. And honestly, you deserve better than whatever it is that's making you act this way. Don't you dare psychoanalyze me, Meghan snapped. You don't know anything about me or my life. You're right, Tamron acknowledged. I don't. Because instead of telling me, instead of sharing your story, instead of using this opportunity to connect with millions of people who tuned in to hear from you, you chose to turn this into a confrontation. That wasn't my choice. That was yours. Meghan grabbed her purse from beside the chair, her movements sharp and aggressive. I'm done here. This interview is over. The interview was over the moment you decided to show disrespect, Tamron said. But for the record, you don't get to call cut. I do. Watch me, Meghan hissed, turning toward the stage exit. But Tamron wasn't finished. Before you go, I want to say something directly to you and to everyone watching. This show has always been about respect. Respect for our guests, respect for our audience, and respect for the conversations we have here. When someone violates that respect, when someone treats this space and these people with contempt, they don't get to stay. It doesn't matter who they are or what their name is. Respect isn't optional here. It's required. Meghan spun around, her eyes blazing. You think you're so noble, don't you? Standing up for your precious show. Let me tell you something, Tamron. Nobody's going to remember your little speech. but they're going to remember that you kicked me off your show. They're going to remember that you couldn't handle a guest who refused to play your game. This isn't a game, Tamron said, her voice quiet but carrying clearly through the silent studio. This is my life's work. These conversations matter. The trust our audience places in us matters, and I will not compromise that for anyone. Your life's work? Meghan scoffed. A daytime talk show? How impressive. That comment seemed to hit differently, not because it hurt Tamron, but because it revealed something essential about Meghan's worldview. The contempt in her voice wasn't just for Tamron or the show. It was for the entire format, the audience, the very idea that this kind of television had value. Tamron took a step closer, and when she spoke, her voice carried a sadness mixed with resolve. Millions of people watch this show. They invite me into their homes every day. They trust me to bring them stories that matter, conversations that mean something, moments that make them think or feel or understand the world a little better. If you think that's not impressive, if you think that's beneath you, then you really shouldn't be here. Finally, Meghan said, throwing her hands up. Something we can agree on. I shouldn't be here. This was a complete waste of my time. Then go, Tamron said simply. Nobody's stopping you. Meghan started walking toward the exit again, her heels clicking loudly against the studio floor in the overwhelming silence. But she couldn't help herself. She had to have the last word. She turned back one more time. You know what your problem is, Tamron? You're threatened by me. You can't handle having someone in that chair who doesn't need you. Someone who's actually famous, not just talk show famous. The insult was designed to wound, but Tamron just shook her head slowly. I'm not threatened by you. I'm disappointed. I had hoped we could have a real conversation. I thought maybe you had something meaningful to share. But instead, you chose to be cruel and condescending to someone who only wanted to give you a platform to speak. That's not threatening. That's just sad. Don't you dare pity me, Meghan snarled. I don't pity you, Tamron replied. I pity anyone who has so much anger inside them that they can't sit through a simple interview without lashing out. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for, because clearly, it's not here. Meghan's face contorted with rage. How dare you? How dare you speak to me like I'm some kind of charity case? I have accomplished more than you could ever dream of. I have lived a life you couldn't possibly understand. And you have the audacity to stand there and act like you're better than me? I never said I was better than you, Tamron said calmly. I said I deserved respect. There's a difference. Respect? Meghan practically shouted the word. You want respect? Earn it. Do something worth respecting instead of sitting in that chair day after day asking celebrities about their feelings. The audience collectively inhaled. Some looked angry. Others looked shocked. A few looked like they wanted to say something but didn't know if they should. Tamron stood perfectly still, and when she spoke, her voice was quiet, but it filled the entire studio. I have earned it. Every single day for over 20 years, I have shown up and done this work with integrity and heart. I have told stories that needed to be told. I have given voices to people who needed to be heard. I have cried with mothers who lost children. I have celebrated with people who overcame impossible odds. I have sat across from presidents and criminals and heroes and everyday people. And I have treated every single one of them with the same respect and dignity. So yes, I have earned it. The question is, what have you done to earn the right to walk onto my stage and treat me this way? The silence that followed was deafening. Meghan's mouth opened, then closed. For the first time since the interview started, she seemed at a loss for words. That's what I thought, Tamron said softly. Now, please leave my stage. Meghan's eyes filled with tears, but they seemed like tears of rage rather than sadness. Fine, I'm leaving, but this isn't over. You have no idea what you've just done. I know exactly what I've done, Tamron said. I stood up for myself and for this show and for every person in this audience who came here today expecting better than what you gave them. If that makes me the villain in your story, I can live with that. Meghan turned on her heel and stormed toward the exit. Her publicist, who had been sitting in the front row looking increasingly horrified as the interview progressed, jumped up and rushed after her. The studio doors opened and then closed, and just like that, Meghan was gone. The studio remained silent for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only a few seconds. Tamron stood on the stage, her chest rising and falling with deep breaths, processing what had just happened. Then, slowly at first, someone in the audience started clapping. Then another person joined in. Then another. Within moments, the entire studio was on their feet, applauding. Not the polite, obligatory applause that comes at the end of every talk show segment, but genuine, heartfelt appreciation for what they had just witnessed. Tamron looked out at the audience, and for the first time since the confrontation started, her professional mask slipped just a little. Her eyes glistened, and she pressed her hand to her chest in a gesture of gratitude. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for being here. Thank you for witnessing that, and thank you for understanding why I had to do what I just did." The applause continued. Someone shouted, "We love you, Tamron." Others echoed the sentiment. Tamron wiped at her eyes quickly, composing herself. "We're going to take a quick break," she said, her voice returning to its professional tone. "When we come back, I want to talk about something important. I want to talk about respect and boundaries, and why it's okay to stand up for yourself even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable." The cameras cut, but the audience kept applauding. Crew members approached Tamron, some putting supportive hands on her shoulder, others looking concerned. The producers were undoubtedly having a frantic conversation in the control room about what to do with this footage, how to handle the fallout, what this meant for the show. But in that moment, standing on her stage, surrounded by an audience that understood exactly what had just happened and why it mattered, Tamron Hall had done something remarkable. She had drawn a line. She had said enough. She had refused to let anyone, regardless of their fame or status or connections, treat her with disrespect in her own house. The interview that was supposed to be a standard celebrity appearance had turned into something else entirely. A moment of raw, unscripted television that showed what happens when someone's sense of entitlement crashes headfirst into another person's refusal to accept it. A masterclass in maintaining composure under fire while still standing firm in your boundaries. A reminder that respect isn't something you can demand. It's something you have to give to receive. As the stage manager counted down to returning from commercial break, Tamron took her seat again. She smoothed her outfit, checked her notes, and took one more deep breath. When the cameras came back on, she was once again the consummate professional, ready to guide the conversation about what had just transpired. "Welcome back," she said, looking directly into the camera with those steady, honest eyes that had earned her the trust of millions of viewers. "I know that what you just saw was intense. It was uncomfortable. It was not what any of us expected when we started this show today. But it was real. And I think there's something important we can all take away from it." She paused, gathering her thoughts, choosing her words carefully. In life, people will test your boundaries. They will push to see how much you'll tolerate, how much disrespect you'll accept, how far they can go before you say stop. And here's what I learned a long time ago, what I was reminded of again today. You have to be willing to say stop. You have to be willing to stand up for yourself, even when it's scary, even when it's awkward. Even when the person pushing your boundaries is someone with more fame, or more money, or more power than you. The audience listened in rapt attention. "I didn't want that interview to go the way it did," Tamron continued. "I genuinely wanted to have a good conversation. I prepared questions. I was excited to talk. But I also wasn't willing to be disrespected. Not on my show, not in front of you, not to myself. And I hope that if you take anything away from what happened here today, it's that you don't have to accept disrespect either. Not from anyone. Not ever." The audience erupted in applause again, and this time Tamron smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. What had started as a routine interview had become something much more significant. A line in the sand, a moment of truth, a demonstration that sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply refuse to accept being treated poorly, regardless of the consequences. The heated clash between Tamron Hall and Meghan Markle would be remembered not for the celebrity drama or the shocking exit, but for what it revealed about character, respect, and the courage it takes to stand up for yourself when someone tries to make you feel small. In just 31 seconds, one comment had ignited a confrontation. But in the minutes that followed, a seasoned professional had shown exactly why she had earned her place in that chair, and why respect will always matter more than fame.